back to the Ball Catchers channel. Definitely happy that you guys came through and stopped by. Just wanted to go ahead and make this video real quick. Let's go ahead and touch on some topics that seem that's been circulating a bit. Obviously some stuff that caught my eye, caught my attention. So today we're gonna be talking about Bitcoin, down roughly 40% from its all-time high. Got some AI stocks I want to look into. Obviously the top two are Nvidia and AMD. Made some headlines today, so I want to go ahead and look into those and see what's going on with that. So for Bitcoin, we're gonna be looking at it through some multiple time frames. Something I know I'm a big fan of the weekly and the daily, but Bitcoin could definitely go ahead and look at some longer time frames, probably the monthly and quarterly, just to see what's going on with it and assessing it at this point in time. Also, the headlines for Nvidia, AMD, going to check on that AI narrative, see what's going on with the conversation about it, anything that's, because we've been talking about AI bubble for a minute, all these type of stuff. So especially Jensen, kind of made some headline news with some comments he's made over the past couple of days. So, and then with AMD's earnings report, definitely kind of raised some eyebrows a bit just to see how everyone's reacting to it. And then also we're going to tap into AMD's chart. So without further ado, we're going to tap right into it. Don't forget, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Definitely appreciate that. And if you have anything you want me to look into, check out, definitely leave that below in the comments. Let's go ahead and go look at Bitcoin. So you see here on the daily chart for Bitcoin, you can see the all-time high over here, 126,865, and then obviously based off the moving averages I used, 50, 72, 100, 200, 253, and 400, clear as day here. You can see that Bitcoin fell past all those, right? And bottomed out at 73,000 roughly. So definitely here on the daily chart, you can see here, as I mentioned before in my past videos, I consider this like no man's land. On my daily chart, I look at a 1 year daily chart. So you can go ahead if you want to go back 2-3 years, but even when I did that, I can show you here that touching that 400 still was pretty far away from it touching that. So even with 3 years worth of data, last time we were down here about the 400, that puts us at September of 2023. So even with that far away timeline, we've hit a level in terms of the indicator, right, that we haven't touched in a very long time. So we were there for a while holding it, and it seems like it pretty much consolidated around here, then kind of ran up, and then obviously fall off a cliff here. And then we also, zoom in a bit, we can see all these moving averages are starting to cross over to the downside. So something like the 50-day, which is my green line here, crossing the purple, which is my 200. That's known as a death cross. So that's usually a bearish signal for a long time, bearish activity. So again, I take these things with a grain of salt, depending on how long it's going to stay in the bearish zone. Who knows? Especially something like Bitcoin, we know it has a history for being very volatile, very whipsaw. It's definitely stabilized over the past few years. It's not as volatile as it used to be, but it's still something that, you could see a drawdown of 40, 50, 60% still. Like, that's not impossible for it to happen. Again, another big sign, an indicator here to show that, hey, don't keep chasing highs. Again, the person who's terribly upset is the guy who bought up here. And this person down here has an opportunity, to capitalize. They gain a 40% discount versus the guy who bought up there at 126. So we can see with the RSI firmly into that oversold territory with the RSI under 30. Same with the MACD. We see that it's turning over. That momentum's going to the downside. It's pretty sharp right here. So definitely see some risk being taken off the table for Bitcoin. Obviously, we know 2025 as well wasn't a great year for it. I think it ended the year negative like 6%, something like that. And then we've seen that it just continued into this year as well, just continue to sell off. And then this selling off here is pretty harsh. And I know probably already seen people with the price predictions where it's going to go at, or it could run up to, a quarter million, $500,000. At the end of the day, no one knows where the price is going to go at, right? It's all about, trying to be disciplined in your buying structure, how you go about it, and stuff like that. That's my thesis on it. If it's a quality asset, go ahead, put your money to it. I just believe in buying at prices that make sense. Don't buy at an all-time high. Don't buy, in the RSIs that, showing that's overbought. Don't buy it when, the random person in the back of a Walmart is trying to give you stock advice or give you investment advice that, he has no, I wouldn't say credentials, but someone that you never heard talk about stocks or talk about cryptocurrency or talked about any type of investing, randomly starts talking to you about it. That's kind of, another sign to be like, maybe something's going on. Your grandmother is talking to you to buy Bitcoin, and you know damn well she doesn't have nothing to do with Bitcoin, doesn't even know how to work her iPhone. So those type of things. Just be aware of where you're at in the market, where you're at in the cycle. When it comes to crypto, when it comes to stocks, and just the overall financial landscape for the financial markets. So we see we're here looking at the weekly chart for Bitcoin now. Same thing, definitely sold off. You see it kind of stabilized at that 100 SMA here. It's holding pretty well until this past 2 weeks. Definitely dropped off and sold off. Then you can see here, I zoom in, I made this little box here for a gap that I saw over here back in November of 2024. There's this little gap I saw, and it was filled out. It got filled out around this area, but it was just intriguing to me because right here in this box is also where we fell to right over here for the week that we're currently in. So I just found it very interesting. We're kind of like at the bottom of that box. So something that definitely piqued my interest, because if it was to continue falling, you see here we have this candle here. The low for this candle is 67,500. So again, not saying it's going to go to that price. That's where it's going to bottom out. That's where you should buy. But just looking at it as it fell into another candle after having this gap that was here, got filled over here with the gap, then it so happened to fall kind of back into the gap again. And then now this candle is kind of how I'm viewing it as a representation for our last candle here on the week. So I'm looking at this range here from the 67,500 to the 77,750 for it to kind of be within there. And then it can still keep falling, right? So I'm going to go over to the next chart for the monthly to show you that on a larger time frame. But again, obviously our next one here is the 200. It could fall to the 200. It has a price of 59,500. Same thing, RSI is at 31, so pretty much oversold. And then same thing with our MACD, showing that strong downward momentum. So let's go ahead and pop open the monthly chart. On the monthly, you can still kind of see how it's playing out. So this is something, again, I would call a mother bar, right? Giving very strong mother bar activity. And then you can see it had periods of time here. This is December 2024. It was broken out of that bar. January 1st of 2025 was out of that bar. Then it fell back into it in the subsequent months. So that's February, That's March, April. So I had these 3 months here that was stuck inside this bar. And this bar's range is at the top $100,315, and then its bottom is the 67,500. So was within here for 3 months, then broke out, obviously ran up to a new all-time high, lost all that pretty much in the month of November back in 2025. And then after that, kind of settled, trade sideways, then continue to drop again. But again, all these from basically right here, halfway into the bar for that month of November and on, is stuck within this bar that was formed in November of 2024. So price returned back to here, and then we have 3 months showing that, hey, we're stuck in this bar. And again, the bottom of this is 67,500. So you could definitely look for price to still keep staying within this bar, bouncing. Probably going to continue to consolidate here. That's what we would like to see. If it breaks past this bar, obviously the next task forward here is the close of this one was 70,000 over here, but the low is 58,945. So then 58,945, I believe that was that's pretty close to the 200 SMA that we have on the weekly chart. So when we go back over here to the monthly, and then we look at that, the next candle that it could fall to at 58,900. If it breaks out of this candle, breaks past that low of 67,500. But I would say it probably is going to stay within this candle consolidate. I'm just going off of, the length of this candle and also the previous history of it having a good few months of consolidation within it before breaking out. Obviously, we're back in it again. This looks like probably going to be another 3-4 months probably stuck inside this candle. And if it was to drop too, it's just going to fall back into this range of consolidation here that we've seen for these past few months. Same thing you see here, RSI is at 46. Same thing with the MACD. So this is definitely confirmation across multiple time frames that we're seeing that, hey, it's just tanking and falling. So it's pretty much consensus that it's all on the same page that we're in a downtrend for it. And then this is kind of one of those very long time frames right here, the quarterly. So for this one, each candle represents 1 quarter or 3 months worth of data. So then you can see here, this is us right here in this quarter. And again, you have a bar over here that kind of has this one trapped inside of it. And then now we're essentially trapped inside this bar. And then same thing for this one. This quarterly on this bar, the low is 58,945. And then obviously the high is 108,960. So that's the range for this quarterly bar. And obviously this is where we're at right now. So let's see if we stay trading within this bar. And then the drawdown has to be pretty strong to continue drawing down to break out of here. And obviously that's going to bring us back to this area here. When we had this doji candle, which is definitely, doji usually means indecisive. No one really knows what direction it's going to go into. Obviously this one worked out for the buyers, rocketed up, and then was running ever since. So this one, definitely we know that the sellers are in control right now. And then it's just playing the waiting game. So it's not fear mongering. Don't let the headlines rattle you. Again, sorry to you if you did buy at this price, but if you bought it up here, you should love it right here at the 76,000 that it's at right now, right? So it's about being disciplined in your buys, knowing when to buy, and we're comfortable at buying that, right? Don't, put your rent money, the mortgage payment into this. Make controlled, smart buys and disciplined buys during this whole process, whether it's investing in things like Bitcoin, whether it's investing, in long-term assets like S&P 500, individual stocks, Just be smart about what you're doing. And RSI here's at 56, and then same thing with MACD. We're still showing, obviously, histogram still showing green, but it is weakening here. You see that the green's fading off, showing that the momentum stalling out. It's weakening, and we do have that curl here, which eventually could probably lead to this touching and probably crossing over. But obviously, we need more time to play out to go ahead and see that. So that's Bitcoin on those multiple charts there. What I wanted to go ahead and touch next on is the narratives I had here. Give me one moment here. Just looking at my notes just to make sure. Yeah, right, yeah. So let me go ahead, pull up the notes that I had here. So something interesting that popped out, as we know, Jensen Huang came out and made that comment about saying that whole pledge for the $100 billion and all that stuff, saying that it wasn't a commitment. And I guess it kind of got a lot of people wrapped up into like, so what do you mean? What's going on? Are you investing 100 billion? Or are you not investing? Because obviously, I just scroll down here. Remember, we had a whole press conference for it. So it's kind of like showing there's probably some beef or something's going on between OpenAI and Nvidia. Obviously, I feel like anything's a story at this point. But it's also something that's to keep in mind, something to pay attention to, because it is affecting, real asset prices and real stocks. As we know, Nvidia off of this, they dropped like 3-4% in a day based off of that type of news, right? Because people are gonna, run with the fear for it. But Nvidia came back on well, to speak with Jim Cramer to kind of clear up all that noise and everything. But again, it's noise you created yourself by making that comment. So did go through the article and highlight some points here, just to reiterate. Remember back in September, Jensen was with Sam Altman talking about investing up to $100 billion in their AI, and obviously in the lab through tranches, right? And then OpenAI is using this to build AI infrastructure based on Nvidia chips. We know they have a deal together, blah, 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 blah. We kind of know that story already, right? But again, everybody remembers that press conference, that whole Nvidia's putting money into OpenAI. And then again, these all lead on to the whole circular economy about you're putting money into this, this company who's going to end up spending money on you to buy chips from you. So it's kind of like all this money's just swishing around, right? But then you see the SEC filing in November show that the deal has not been finalized. And it's been, months since that announcement. And then the past weekend, the Wall Street Journal reported that the deal was on ice. So that came out. News, shares falling 3.4% today. Obviously, when Nvidia sells off, they kind of one of the names holding the market together. All the tech stocks will sell off. And then obviously the AI sector is going to sell off. It's going to be a compounding effect. And then I did make a video a couple of videos ago. We did talk about Nvidia, how they've been trading in the range. And obviously they're 13% off. So it gives you now, that's that correction area now. So definitely give an eye and look into that. But then we did have Jensen come out on Tuesday to go ahead and talk about OpenAI's next funding round. He is saying that he's definitely going to be, involved in it. Definitely wants to go ahead and be a part of that round and invest in the round. But the thing is, it's not saying they're investing 100 billion. They're a part of a round that could raise as much as $100 billion, right? So I just feel like the narrative. I'm happy he's probably clearing it up too, but people probably got confused about the amount that's going in. So it is good that he is probably clearing the air, but it's also kind of doing more damage than it is actually helping, because a lot of people are taking it back, and people are taking it as you're backing out or you're not committing to what you said you were going to commit. But again, he said, I never said I'm giving 100 billion. The round is for up to 100 billion. So they both, both said their sides. Ginseng, Altman both came out, said their parts. Obviously, they still want to work together. They still enjoy working together. They want to be partners through this. And then just keep in mind that OpenAI does still work with the competitors like AMD, Broadcom, and a company called Cerebras. So just something to keep in mind for that. And then let's go ahead and dive into AMD. So AMD, that's one thing I always mention. They have the earnings report. Earnings always hit or miss. And this I feel like is a perfect example of it. So AMD topped expectations, and beat they beat earnings. They had a great earnings report. When we go down and look at the numbers, they're phenomenal. But it was their guidance that analysts wasn't too happy with, right? But again, they beat the expectations, they beat the earnings and all that stuff, but analysts did not like the guidance, which led to this after hours drop of 8%. We'll see what it turns out to be in the morning, but 8% drop off of earnings report when you beat everything is pretty ridiculous. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, there's a disconnect between the real numbers that these companies are producing, real money's coming in, and people keep having this expectation down the line of what they expect, what they want to see, and it could be skewed, and it's going to mess up with your outlook on the company and mess up with the returns over the long run. Because people are not, I know they get paid to do this, paid to do the research, paid to do all these things to come up with these forecasts, expectations, and stuff like that. But again, these are just numbers they're coming up with based off of, past data. I'm looking at hardcore, like, really, what did you produce this year? Cool. Was it more than last year? Bet. I like that. I'm going to keep on investing in you. So that's, I feel like, the way to look at it. But they don't like the guidance, and yeah. But let's go ahead and dive into it. Again, it's just something analyst reports do. I used to look at it when I first started getting into investing, but over time I just started looking away from it, like price projections and analysts think, da 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 da. I just look at it as like, I don't know, bro. You're reading research reports, you're reading articles. I'm reading articles too. Like I'm gonna look at. I like actual reports. Like, what did you really report? What did you really submit? These are the numbers. Okay, cool. I can rock with that. I'm not gonna keep on trying to predict the future and forecast and this and that. No. But let's go ahead, look into it. AMD, they had the earnings per share. You can see here, expected was $1.32 per share. Obviously, they beat that, got $1.53. Same with revenue, 9.67 billion was expected. They beat that as well, 10.27 billion, right? And then this is over here. I forgot to highlight this part over here. But they were saying for the first quarter, they expect 9.8 billion plus or minus 300 million. And then the expectations are 9.38 billion. So that's kind of in line. I guess that 300 million plus or minus is kind of what throwing them off a bit. But they were just expecting stronger guidance to ramp up spending for chips necessary to power AI models. So they basically just wanted some more news about how you're going to be ramping up your spending, how are these chips going to be coming out, stuff like that. They wanted some more news, or I guess guidance about that specific thing of it. And again, future guidance, like I said, can help or hurt you. Depends on how you frame the narrative, how you frame the story is what's going to help your stock survive earning seasons or not survive it, right? Obviously, how they presented their information did not help them. 8% of wealth is lost overnight for Lisa Su, for her shareholders, stuff like that. But again, not all is lost. Obviously, it's only lost if you sell. So that could climb back up. AMD's doing great. So it's just people making a whole bunch of noise. You can see here AMD overall revenue was up 34% on an annual basis. That's amazing. Go down here. Then we're going to go into the segments, right? The parts of the business. Data center segment had $5.4 billion in sales, up 39% just on that segment alone, right? And then that growth is driven by CPUs and the GPUs, which is another thing people forget. We always talk about these GPU this. We still got to remember these companies like AMD, Nvidia, they still have a component that's the CPU, the central processing unit, that's still going into these laptops and stuff like that. People are still buying those as well. It gets forgotten about due to all this AI talk for the GPUs, but CPUs are still a very strong, viable market for these companies, and they're still able to make revenue off of that. So the AI boom is boosting sales of the company's central processors, not just the GPUs. And obviously, we'll dive into that. So the hyperscalers, they're expanding their infrastructure to meet growing demand for cloud services. So obviously, these companies got to buy more CPUs due to the growth of AI. So it's a two-way street basically. Yeah, they need the GPUs, but also they need to buy more CPUs in order to handle for their cloud services for the amount that the GPUs will be using for the AI and for the information that they need to store. So, and a lot of these enterprises again are modernizing their data centers. 'Cause a lot of people, they're still stuck in the past, and this AI, as we know, AI is changing every day, every week, every month is something different, something you gotta hurry up and adapt to. So they're modernizing their data centers to enable new AI workflows. And another forgotten part for AMD, as we people do forget about Nvidia too. There's a whole gaming section and sector for them. Nvidia has one, AMD has one as well. For AMD, it rose 37% year over year to 3.9 billion. And then to leave off the article with AMD is having the issues again with the whole China thing, trying to get chips over there. As we see, Nvidia had that issue too for sending down chips over to China. Supposedly that's being all cleared up for them to get the green light to send chips over to China to tap back into that market. Obviously, tapping into that market, it's going to bring in more revenue. If Nvidia is able to do it, I'll be strongly surprised if they don't get the green light to AMD as well to go ahead and tap into that market. Saying it's going to happen, bring in more revenue. Turns out, great news, everybody's happy. So those are the headlines. And then just to close it out, we'll go ahead and look at the chart for AMD. Go ahead and look at the daily on here. Because obviously we had this report happen for earnings. We're not going to see what the stock looks like right now because obviously the market's not open. It's 2 o'clock in the morning right now when I'm recording this. The market's not open. So we're definitely going to see this drop down pretty steeply. If that 8% drop does happen, it's going to drop right about here to that 50-day SMA, to that 221. So 8% for that is about $222 is about 8% drop. So we definitely see a drop over here to that 221, right around there come morning time. And then there's not a bad buying price there too, entry point. But again, you know me, I like looking at my 100-day, especially for the daily. So that's that 217, round up 218. But definitely looking to see that in the morning, that drop off down to here. RSI right now is showing 55. It could be looking at 50 or lower come morning. And then MACD is pretty much flat and neutral right now. Could definitely see that come morning. Just curl down to the downside. Maybe start doing that crossover. And then a couple more days into it, we'll see how it plays out for them. And then on the weekly chart, we can see how AMD's been doing lately. So this could be a telltale sign of it. We've seen this gap up from September of 2025. We had this gap up from that week. So hit all-time highs, dropped, consolidated, ran up a little bit, probably could fall back into this consolidation zone. But eventually at some point this is going to fall to come back here and grab this section right here. It's going to have to fill this gap. So that's definitely something that we could look and see happen once time passes on. Go ahead and make that box here. Definitely I'll make it bigger. But pretty much this box right here, this gap needs to be filled up. So it is going to get filled at some point. So we definitely are eventually going to see price drop down to it. Obviously we don't know when, but something to keep in mind. And then again, also something too. That's why we look at discounts based off percentages, and we also look at moving averages. So on a weekly chart, still looking strong, still looking good. Again, the 8% drop is going to bring it down quite a bit. Definitely elongate this candle a little bit more to the downside. But for their 100 SMA, that's 157. Good entry point for that. And then for weekly, I'd probably go to 253 as their lowest. 126. So 126 to 157 is a good range for it. Obviously, everything up here is definitely way too high. Again, wait for moving averages or wait for a 10%, 20% drop. 10% for your correction, 20% for your quote-unquote bear market activity. So look for those as your buying opportunities and buying points. And then same thing here for MACD. MACD is flat as well as we've seen on the daily. Definitely look after those 8% drop. If it does hold until morning, look for that to roll over and probably cross over to the downside. So that's all I have for you guys today. So definitely something that caught my attention when I was doing some reading and going through some stuff throughout the day. I was like, let me go ahead and make this video at some point when I get the chance. Again, like, comment, subscribe. You can send an email to thewealthcatcher@yahoo.com. If you guys have anything you want to send me and you want to talk about, you can also feel free to leave any tickers down in the comment section below. Anything you want me to look up. And definitely will leave the link to the website. Again, the watch list is out. Posted on February 1st. Go ahead, look for some price points. I like to call it hunting, so go out there and enjoy, happy hunting. Look at every month as an opportunity to go ahead and add to your portfolio or even plan what you're going to do next, right? So definitely don't sleep on it. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I have for you guys. Again, thank you for stopping by. And always remember, catch and secure your wealth. Y'all have a great one.